Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another show, for another episode of our Let's Talk Arsenal series, our twice weekly show on a Tuesday and a Friday at 5 p.m. UK time. And on Tuesdays, I'm joined by a guest, and today I'm joined by the man, the myth, the legend, the glasses wearing bald man. It's Lee Judges. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm not too bad, Tom. Thank you very much. I just want to point out, on time, you know what I mean? So
he was on time. We ended up chatting. That's my fault, to be fair.
Exactly.
I'll take 100% of the blame for that. But yeah, we've not caught up in a spell, so it was necessary. For sure.
We ain't spoke for a while, have we? Like, if I'll be honest. So
no, we fell out. We had a huge falling out. We weren't speaking.
No, exactly right. You know, so we've made up now, though.
Yeah, no, best of friends again. No, it's great to have you on here, Judge, and chat to you again. Obviously, I mean, I've been looking at some of the clips towards the end of this season that are popping up and cropping up on my timeline as they do, and you're not one to lack in anger at the end of the season. And I mean, I have stolen one of your quotes, it's fair to say, for the thumbnail, as you described Arteta as the luckiest manager alive, which is a hell of a statement, and we're going to go into that and obviously plenty more. But I actually want to know, before we get into kind of Arsenal, because it's going to get depressing in a minute, but I want to know how you are, mate, and what you've been up to recently and kind of the social aspect of things. How have you been coping with Arsenal in this situation, from putting it to one side, I suppose, and just dealing with life?
Do you know what? I'll tell you what, which is a real good thing. I think that Arsenal, you know, sort of takes over your life a little bit, like, you know, travelling up and down the country, sort of sorting out weekends away and everything for the Arsenal and everything, like. And I think that the one good thing that it has done, this pandemic has sort of done, is made me feel like, and especially the way we've been playing, that Arsenal's not the be end and end all. You know, like, there are other things in life, even though we haven't been able to do too many things. But I'm just gonna, you know, realistically just want to enjoy life a little bit better, like, you know. And I think with the current form that Arsenal are in and have been in probably for the last couple of years now, Tom, if I'll be honest, you know, it's not worth getting the ump and getting upset about it so much. About losing and all that. You got, and I've learned to just live with it. Like, you know, I used to be really angry and not getting to sleep watching after Arsenal games now, but I'm just trying to, like, not let it affect me. Like, you know, don't get me wrong, Thursday was different. That did affect me, but you know, you got to, I think, appreciate where you are in life and appreciate what Arsenal are now, and not let it rule your life if you can, you know. And I think that maybe in the past we've done that, we're guilty of it. And I'll tell you what I have missed, though, Tom. I've just missed meeting up with my mates, having a drink. You know, that's the thing that I think I've missed more than anything. Forget that the football, you know, maybe because you've had it on TV and all that, like, I don't know, but it ain't the same watching it on telly. But ultimately, the banter and meeting your friends and that feeling you have going to games and everything, that's what I've missed. But hopefully, you know, can get that back, and this is going to be a new me.
Let's see. I can't wait to see Lee Judge's mark. Well, this must be about mark 7 or 8 by now.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes. I understand completely what you're saying. I've been saying on the channel for a while, and we've kind of been pressing the rhetoric of, look, Arsenal is utterly rubbish right now, and it's the lowest of my lifetime of the years that we're experiencing Arsenal, and making sure that you've got escapes. I mean, for obviously both me and you working and earning a living from the game and as well makes it a lot more difficult. And football fulfills our minds throughout the day, but it's so key to have extra things, be it family, be it hobbies, 100%. Be it anything else, and you do need to find that escape. So we do encourage you all to do that. But we are going to talk about Arsenal, of course. Otherwise, it'll be a bit silly calling the show Let's Talk Arsenal and not having a discussion about it. Cayman Gooner, thank you so much for the super chat. He says the fan base is choosing to be divided on Arteta over being united against Kroenke. It's an interesting point. Josh and Stan are probably loving the attention change. You were obviously at the protests the other week. It was It was a little bit disappointing the other day. Obviously, I'm not able to attend at the moment because of vulnerabilities and the pandemic going on with people in my close circle. But it was disappointing to see kind of the other one the other day kind of so low. And I know that they're pushing for another 2 towards the end of the season. And there's a couple of decent videos that came out during those protests about like, if we can't get together for this, how are we ever going to hope to get him out? Talk to me about kind of your feelings around the protests. I know you definitely went to the other one, but talk to me about kind of your feelings around that side of things.
Yeah, I think that I think the first protest was fantastic, and I have to say that applaud every Arsenal fan, because we made our point very, very clear without no trouble and everything like that. And I don't know if maybe what Man United done the other week, maybe just stop people going and whatever. I don't know, because you don't want to have violence at things like that, and you don't want to see things that happen and all that. And I just think that at this moment in time, doing it every game would dilute it, in my opinion. That's only my opinion. I think that, you know, do like the end of the season now, like one against Brighton, he's something to go for. The first game of the season, or even in between in the summer, you know, but just keep hammering it home that it's not for them. But if you keep doing it every week, of course fans are going to get not disillusioned with it. Like, you know, people think, oh, well, I'll tell you what happened. And I think this is what they got 4,000 there. I won't go this one because there'll still be another 4,000 there and whatever. And I don't think it quite got the same sort of thing. But I think now we've there's been a lot more advertisement for this one, and I think that is important. And I also think it being a game as well. And do you know what? I'm going to say this now, Tom. I think a lot of people, and I'm myself included, I'm just talking for myself, but I'm so down about Thursday that nothing at this moment with Arsenal really bothers me. I'm just really down about the whole football club, and I feel that, you know, I just wasted energy, I suppose. I just didn't, you know, I didn't even want to watch the game. You know, if it wasn't for, if I was just a fan, you know, I wouldn't have watched that game. I couldn't be bothered. You know, I'll be honest. Yeah. I know this is painful to say. If that was, now listen, I know.
You're not alone, mate. You're really not. Yeah.
If it wasn't a 12, you know, listen, if it was a normal game, just say like normal circumstances, you could go to the game. It's not going to be a 7 o'clock kickoff, like, but because that don't help. But it would have been a 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock, whatever time kickoff on a Sunday. Yeah. I wouldn't have gone. Whether I would not have bothered going to that game. I would have, you know, and that's how low the club is making me feel at the moment. Like, you know, it was just, and I think it was. Do you know what? When we won on Sunday, that wound me up because we scored goals which we probably should have gone for. So everything about Sunday just wasn't really good, you know. So I don't think it was a great time to protest. But listen, people that did, I admire them for it, like, you know. But I think that what we've got to do is a fan base is like put out pointers of what ones to go for and really make it, you know, big fan base, so that it shows it, like, and obviously peacefully. I don't want to see what Man United did and things like that, even though it was look at the publicity they got from it, but it ain't the right way to go. I thought our one at Everton was fantastic, and you know, was to the point.
Exactly. And what I want to kind of clarify as well what you're saying, because whilst you're saying you wouldn't have gone to the game, I don't want people interpreting that as saying you're not necessarily caring about the fact that, but I can tell for people that obviously don't go to games or aren't able to go to games because of their location or because of travel or whatever, it actually is quite a commitment to go to. I think even a home game, it is a commitment with the travel and the time and the money that's involved in going to the games and stuff. It is a hell of a lot of money just to go before you even get to your ticket. So I think it's important to kind of put that out there, and it's not a case of not supporting the team and not wanting. It's not like you're turning around and saying you didn't want them to win the game. It's ridiculous. But like,
you know, I'm happy that Arsenal won and cheered when Arsenal scored. But there comes a time when there's a tipping point, and it's got nothing to do with where the team is or whatever. Because in the 80s, I used to go quite a lot in the 80s when we was even worse than this. If I'll be honest, this is not the worst Arsenal time, by the way. It's virtually very, very close to it. But what is the worst is that, you know, like, we had people on the board at that time that were hurting and cared and sorted it out at the end. I don't see that. I don't see no end with these guys. You know, listen, things weren't great under the Hill Woods. If I'll be honest, at times there were great times as well. But ultimately, they were there every game. So when we lost to Walsall and Coventry back in those days, we actually lost to Walsall and then West Brom. West Brom were down the bottom of the table, and that was the one that really got Terry Neal out, I suppose. 13,000 fans there, Tom. You know what I mean? Like, you know, it was doom and gloom. And but the Hill Woods and the owners were there seeing that as well and feeling our pain as well and done something about it. I don't see them. And that's what I'm feeling like, you know. It's not, and somewhere along the line, I feel like if that was a game and I didn't turn up, I was supporting the cause, if you know what I mean, like by an empty stadium. So it's a difficult one.
It is really hard to kind of find your place in it's almost like you think of yourself as a tiny speck in the universe, and it feels a little bit like that as an Arsenal fan at times, thinking that there's not much you can really do unless everyone comes together at once. And even then, with the amount that's been tried, planes, banners, boycotts, protests, marches, and still they're here. It is incredibly disheartening and very difficult to keep getting knocked back and retry and go again. And that is obviously the biggest challenge, is to keep going. It's like someone making the New Year's resolution to go to the gym. It's very hard to get up every single morning and still go when you don't necessarily maybe see the change in yourself, and maybe not seeing the change in the club does dishearten and does kind of discredit, and not necessarily discredit, it makes it more difficult to do so. What do you have any kind of hope from your perspective around the idea of change, or do you read obviously and hear what's been said during fan forums from those guys, what you see in press releases, that they're so stubborn and intent in not selling? Do you see that changing? Do you see Daniel Ek being successful?
No, I don't. I don't see him selling the club. Why? I'll be honest now. I don't think they care about what the fans feel, because if they cared about what the fans feel, they'd have done something about it 2 seasons ago. You know, I think that I don't think they're going to sell. I listened to what, you know, a couple of weeks ago, there's going to be loads of changes and all that. And then I see Mikel Arteta coming out today saying, it depends on this and depends on that. I don't really see a lot of change, you know what I mean? You know, if Arteta's not going to go, then he's got to change 5 or 6 players again. So, you know, and then bring in another 5 or 6. I think the only thing that I think's great about Arsenal Football Club at the moment is the youngsters, but whether they're, you know, going to be, you know, is Saka going to stay or is he going to be sold? Who knows? I'm not saying he's going to be sold next season, but you know what I mean? Like, there's going to come a stage where, a watershed moment, where he's going to think to himself, well, hold on a minute, are the club going to match the ambitions of me?
Yeah.
And this moment in time, that the clubs, you know, can't match the ambitions of an Everton or an Aston Villa or someone like that, as far as I'm concerned. So, you know, and what it is at this moment, Tom, is it's a consistent decline. It's constant decline. You know, top 4, then it was 5th. Now we're 10th. When is it going to stop? When are these owners going to turn around and say enough's enough? This has got to stop. We've got to address it. When we're relegated, I don't know. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that we are, but when, you know, you keep going the way we're going, there's only one. We're certainly not going up, are we? We're moving down and down, and it's disheartening. It's disheartening. I don't really see anything happening. We could actually be here this time next year and talking about the same things. That's how I feel, and that is the worry. I don't trust the owners. I don't trust the manager no more. I don't trust him no more. So, and the players, I lost trust with them a long time ago. A long time ago.
And a lot of stuff needs to change. We saw the press conference today, and It was a strange press conference because it was so conflicting for me in a number of ways, because it felt like the obvious examples of the Kroenke's words being proven to mean nothing, because if there's the big plans to invest, as we're told, then why does Arteta need to come out and tell us that they need to change the plan for the summer? Because if the plan for the summer involves wanting to buy XYZ player, and there's big plans from the ownership to go and invest in those players, why do we need to change that? Because, I mean, arguably the difference between us achieving European football in comparison to, say, an injection of money from them when financial fair play is no longer a factor, it does contradict in my mind those words about big plans to invest and what we see, and even the talking about being able, like, we have to sell players to buy players, and maybe part of that is just because of the size of the squad and needed to move players on and make space for incoming. But he didn't say that. It was about the finances that came into kind of the forefront of the conversation. It looks like he's staying, Lee, is the ultimate thing. Like we can talk about the fact that I felt, even though I've backed the guy a lot, that I felt that after the game against Villarreal, that's a deserving moment to probably move the coach on at that point. And obviously, I know that at the start, it's not even the start of the season, but throughout the season, especially into kind of the more difficult parts, even during Christmas where it was really low, you yourself were still very much kind of, no, we need to stick with this guy. The players are at fault at this point. Is there a part of you that now, obviously, you've said things, obviously, over on AFTV about kind of wanting to move on from the manager, he's got to go, and you get criticised for changing your mind? We come up with this kind of conversation on TGT a lot, the kind of the concept of being able to change your mind about something, and being criticised for doing so, for having your mind. What do you think about kind of the criticism of changing your mind as such on a topic as big as the manager throughout the season, and people turning to you and saying, well, you said before that you wanted him to stay, and now you're saying that you wanted to go, so you were wrong before, and this obsession with that, but trying to point out that people are wrong. How do you feel about that kind of concept?
Well, I don't think anybody's wrong. I mean, first and foremost, it's your opinion. So, I mean, how can you be wrong with your opinion? Doesn't mean there's no right and there's no wrong. What it is, and as far as I'm concerned, is like, I watch Arsenal Football Club, and it's a results business. So, when you're up, when you win a game, you're going to be like that and not. And, I'll get called a flip-flop. I'm hoping for a sponsor with Havana's or something like that. We never know. But what I'm saying is that, there are first and foremost, it's not about being right, about wrong. I want Mikel Arteta to succeed, because if he does succeed, then Arsenal are successful. If he's going to get the sack, it means that we've had a season like we've had now. So, and ultimately, I see good things in Mikel Arteta, and I see things that are not good about him. And then all of a sudden, what happens is it does come down to results. Now, it's no good saying to people in the past, well, it's a results business, because ultimately Arsene Wenger was a loved man at Arsenal Football Club. The reason that people fell out of love with him was because results, Tom. I mean, performances. Same with Emery. I don't really, whether I like Arteta or not, it's about him being successful. Now, I don't think that you should be jumping on the bandwagon of wanting him out and then gloating on it, because ultimately Arsenal have failed. And same if he was winning, why dig out the people that want him gone as well? So I don't really understand that. I think what you've got to do is look at it logically. And I feel that I have looked at it logically. I've wanted to back him. I've wanted him to be successful. It hasn't worked. It's not worked. Ultimately, the biggest question would have been if he'd have actually have won. If he would have won, say, the Europa League, it would have come up as a bigger question. Then, do you keep him and all that? So for me, he had two objectives. He had an objective to get to the Champions League. He had two objectives to do it: top four, which was going to be very, very difficult, and the Europa League was going to be very, very difficult. The Europa League, to be fair, has been a shambolic all the way through. I don't think we've been brilliant all the way through, from the group stages, all through the knockouts. It's been poor. And the semi-finals, to me, were the tipping point. I have to say, like, you know, we've gone against. I watched Chelsea versus Real Madrid the night before. It's the worst Real Madrid team I've seen since I can remember, Tom. I can't remember a worse Real Madrid. They're second or third in the league. It's 10 times better than what Villarreal. I mean, look how we struggled against Villarreal. Look how it was awful. And I have to say, you know, you live and die by your sword, and the decisions that he made in the first leg, I'm sorry, I don't think you can survive from a 10th in the league. I don't think, if you be honest, any other club, and I include Spurs in this, I include any club in the Italian teams, French teams, and whatever, the big ones. If they come 10th in the league, would they survive? Would Ole Gunnar Solskjaer survive if Manchester United were 10th in the league? No way. No way. So mentality-wise, you know, Spurs got rid of Mourinho because they felt that he'd failed to get them in top four. You know, whether you like it, Tottenham or not, that shows a ruthlessness that I'd like to see from our football club at times, you know. And, you know, Chelsea, you know, we get it with Chelsea because they're a different animal, but they were on the same points as us when they changed their manager. Now, ultimately, people go and try and compare Chelsea to Arsenal. No, I'm not comparing about the budget, but the same players, because let's face it, he's not had any other players. The same players were not performing under Frank Lampard, are all of a sudden performing under a new manager. So that could happen with Arsenal, like, you know what I mean? Players could start being better than what they are. And I'm sorry, the one thing that's swayed me more than anything is that, and I've said this before, I don't buy programmes at Arsenal, but if I did, I'd be reading programmes at games now because I'd be bored. The football's woeful. It's woeful. You know what I mean? And that is ultimately it. It's not entertaining. It's not winning football neither. And I'm sorry, from that point of view, when you've got players like Saka, Smith Rowe, Odegaard, Aubameyang, Martinelli, guys like that, in Pepe, and you can't have one shot on target in a semi-final. I don't think we had 3 or 4. It wasn't even a penalty, by the way, you know, in the first leg.
No,
that is not good enough. It's not acceptable. And you know, I look at things, Tom, you know, Gabriel, we signed Gabriel, he wasn't playing. We signed Willian in the summer, wasn't involved. So things are not right at the football club, you know, and that's my opinion. That's why my opinions change. You know, I watched us in the FA Cup this time, you know, at the end of last season. I thought it was fantastic. And I thought, oh, we really look like a side. But we can't string 5 wins together. One of those reasons being the manager keeps changing and chopping the team around all the time, and we haven't got the consistency of a manager that believes in his players for whatever reason. Well, okay, that's fair enough. And also, if I was Mikel Arteta, one of the biggest things for me is if I wouldn't want to be known as Pep's light or whatever. I want my own identity. Go out there and get your own identity. Don't copy somebody else. Yeah, take ideas from him, take ideas from somebody else, but ultimately, you know, you don't want to be what another manager is. That's how I feel.
Yeah, the experimentation of a false 9 in the first leg just stunk of out of ideas for me, and just reverting to kind of looking at what Man City have done and what his former what's the word you want to use? He's an apprentice, I suppose, to the master, and saying that you just looked at De Bruyne playing there and thought, well, if I put Smith Rowe there, maybe you can do the same sort of thing. And the realistic thing is, whilst we all love Smith Rowe and believe he can maybe be one day of a really top class level, he isn't that now, and he's never played that role ever before, and it just made absolutely no sense. And that's why my mind started to quickly change on the coach, because I just kept seeing things happen over and over again, and I'm thinking, well, why are we doing this? Why did we persist with Willian for so long at the start of the season? Why did Granit Xhaka get put at left back, and then when it clearly stopped working, it might have worked against Sheffield United, in which we blitzed them. It might have worked against Slavia Prague when we blitzed them 4-0 and he wasn't really involved. But when it comes down to the actual crunch games, he started to come undone. And it wasn't even against the biggest of oppositions. He was getting undone against Fulham at home before we even went into that game. And it was really frustrating seeing that position being used, because we then lost so much. It's not even necessarily a big criticism of Granit Xhaka, because I felt like, well, by putting him at left back, you lost all of his good traits that we get from him when he's in the middle.
Exactly. You know, and the thing is, we could have, you know, Saka's been fantastic for us, but the downgrade of putting Saka, leaving Saka out and putting Martinelli was not as big a downgrade as taking Xhaka out of the midfield.
Then he put Saka at left back the other day, and it was against who is it we played? I can't remember the West Brom. But he put Saka at left back against West Brom, and he was great there.
Brilliant,
and he was really good. And you're sitting there going, "Why are you doing this to us? Why?"
You know, it was like God come down to him, wasn't it, and said, "I'm going to injure your Xhaka today to make you make the decision," and he still didn't do it. He put Tierney in there that's clearly not fit. You know, and that's nothing to do with inexperience. That's nothing to do with a pandemic, or nothing to do with no pre-season. That's just poor managing, poor thing. Put Saka in there, who's tried and tested. You've got Martinelli that can play up front. It was like, I don't want to play Martinelli. But, you know, I look at it now. But, you know, I've put in my team for the Chelsea game tomorrow. I want to see Bellingham play tomorrow. I want to see him play tomorrow. I want to see what he can do. Is he? You know, for me, great opportunity to play him. Can he do it against Chelsea? If he can't do it against Chelsea, fair enough. He might need a bit of a loan spell. But you know what? You'll know. Then play against a Sheffield United or a West Brom. Put him in the deep end. Test him. See if he can do it. And you know, this is where I'm just so disappointed with Arteta. Like, you know, he's just made so many mistakes. Continuing to play Willian. Now, Willian done fantastically well against West Brom. Let's be honest, like, you know what I mean. But you know,
maybe I could.
Why are some of the youngsters in these games now? We know what Willian can do. He's had enough opportunities, and I just can't see, you know, like Danny Ceballos, for instance, is not going to be about. I had put him in my team for tomorrow, but like, he isn't going to be about. So why don't put in a young kid, like, you know what I mean? At least you'll know, because at the end of the day, Danny Ceballos is not going to be here next season. And the big decision now, if Leno's not going to be here next season, right, we'll bring in Matt Ryan and let him have the next few games. You know, and I just think that there's not enough. You know, like, for instance, he can be ruthless in some ways and then not in other ways. You know, ruthless with Guendouzi, ruthless with Pepe, not so ruthless with Xhaka. Willian goes off to Dubai. That's all right. You're still in the team. If one of the youngsters done that, they'd have been ripped apart, Tom.
Yeah.
You know, all things like that. You know, it's just very, very disappointing. I've just been, the more the season's unfolded, the more and more questions that have come up against Arteta. Now, people see it earlier than me, and fair enough. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think it's because they're more clever than that. They just
well, they make you think it is.
They'd had enough, and fair enough. I wanted to see it like, but what I've noticed is that I was sort of sitting on the fence. There was a lot of real. I'm not going to mention names that were backing Arteta and everything like. They've all now said no. He's got to go. It's not because they don't dislike him. It's because what they've been seeing. Yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? You've been watching it. You know what I mean? And backing him, and quite rightly so, because you should back a manager. You should back the team, even if you know that the team's not good enough. But ultimately, the team's not good enough. The manager's not good enough. What's that going to end up? You're going to end up 10th, 11th in the league, which is not acceptable. Not acceptable.
No, it's not acceptable. It is the reality of the situation, and it looks like he's going to be sticking around for at least the short term, and we'll see what happens this summer. We have reached kind of just past halfway of the show, so I just want to give a couple of shout-outs in the chat box. First of all, Lenny213 in the chat says, Lee is a gent, and I've had an absolute pleasure of meeting him all the way back in 2005. Wow, we're going back now through Declan F when we played Palace at home. You're getting younger, mate, he says. Do you remember Lenny? That's a blast in the past.
Sorry, Lenny, I don't. But like, I Hopefully I was all right and I wasn't drunk. So
it's been a few years since then. Yeah, forgive him. And also, seeing as we are at the halfway point through the show, of course, as it is Let's Talk Arsenal, it is, of course, as always, sponsored by our fantastic sponsors, Football Prizes. There's a couple of prizes Arsenal related that Lee, you'll like one of these specifically.
yeah.
This one is a very nice one. Gabriel Martinelli signed and framed Arsenal montage photograph. Only £2.95 for the ticket. There's 65 available, and there's only 20 sold so far, and there's just over a day left. But there's an even better one that is going to be running out on Friday, which if I could just go onto their main page and scroll down, I should be able to find it. Here it is. It's a Tony Adams signed and framed Arsenal shirt. They all come with the old certificate of identification and authenticity and all of that. So there you go. That's a pretty decent prize. And there's half the tickets have already gone, and you've only got 3 days left to get them in. So make sure you get a chance to get a prize. I'm really pleased with kind of the sponsors that we've got. We haven't really done sponsors before, but the fact that we can get kind of these Arsenal specific related things for the guys.
Fantastic. What a prize. Well, that Tony Adams one, superb.
There you go. So make sure you get a ticket before they run out. Anyway, last kind of 10, 15 minutes of the show, I do want to kind of look at positives, I suppose, is a good word, but maybe the word solution is the better way. It's how we solve this. Obviously, realistically, he's not going to be going. We know that. But what do you kind of want to see happen this summer, Lee? What is it that you have got down on your list of priorities that Arteta and the club need to be looking at in regards to squad recruitment and sales, of course?
I'm not necessarily worried how much money they spend, but if I'll be honest, what I want to see from this board is ambition. I want to see a proper ambition. I want to see them look like they really want Arsenal to go places. Now, easy way of doing that is to come out and say, well, I'm going to give you £500 million. Like, but it doesn't mean to say that you're going to be successful with that. So it's got to be, what I'm saying is constructive transfers. You know what I mean? Like, I can't remember, Tom, the last time I was excited after a summer window when I thought, do you know what, Arsenal, this could be our season. This could be the season when we can do this and do that. It's been not quite good enough. Not, we're still one or two that I want to go into the summer going, do you know what, they've covered every single base to try and make us a top four side. Let's forget about the title, top four side, really challenge it. We should be now challenging the top four at this stage of the season with three or four games left. We should be in and around it, and we're not. So that's what I want to see. Now, it doesn't mean to say that we've got to bring in 50, 60 million pound central defenders, the proper players in proper positions. But obviously, like, I do want to see a big marquee signing. Now, I go back to 1983 when we were in the same position that we are now, poor, not doing really, really well. And I'll be honest, we had players like Lee Chapman, John Hawley up front, people like that, Ray Hankin, guys on the chat won't even remember those guys, but they were there. We got in Tony Woodcock, and then in '83 we got Charlie Nicholas. It changed everybody then was looking forward to go to the games. It probably didn't work out as well as it should have done, but it gave the fans a lift. And us fans need a lift. We need something to hang our hat on. And as much as we've got good youngsters, the bad times during the Terry Neal times and all that, when I was growing up, like, I looked at it, we had Liam Brady, Frank Stapleton, David O'Leary, Graham Ricks, players that were top players at their time. I look at this Arsenal team, Tom, there's not one I can really say he's a fantastic player. Yes, you got Saka and Smith Rowe, but they're 20 and 19 years of age. You know what I mean? They're not properly where you want to be at this moment. We need someone to pin our hats on and be excited about. So the people with, like, going back to that when Charlie Nicholas signed, everybody's having their hairs permed and having long hair and things like that. That sort of thing, you know what I mean? I'm not saying that I don't want a long hair player, but I'm saying something that can give the fans a massive lift and go, do you know what? Come August, at whatever it is, 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, I'm looking forward to going to the game, not making it a chore, what it has been for the last 3 or 4. Well, certainly under this cronky rain, it has. I want us to be excited, not a chore.
Oh, those choice of words. Be excited.
Oh.
I'm getting flashbacks. I'm getting nightmares all of a sudden. Mr. Joe Kerr in the chat says, I want to see one future-proofing, young-ish signings that we could sell on maybe in the future. Of course, it's something that we haven't done by bringing the likes of Willian, etc., that have just been an absolute waste of money at the moment. And number 2, definite and realistic season targets. Definitive, maybe you mean. Number 3, end the legacy of the retirement contracts that we see also, like with Aubameyang, like we've seen in the past of Ozil. We need to be smarter. That's ultimately what we need to do. It's what I want to see, though, Lee, is I agree with you in the kind of the statement signings and the way that we need to lift the fan base with those types of deals. But I do kind of want to, not even necessarily like, I'm not talking about a huge marquee deal. I'm not talking about expecting a Jack Grealish and someone's going to cost 80, 90 million. But I just want to see, yeah, of course. I just want to see sensible signings made. I want to see Arsenal go out and sign players from within England. We haven't done that in so long. I'm talking about kind of players that are going to be at the top of their game at their clubs, not surplus players like Cedric and Willian and Welbeck, not these guys. I want to see Basuma come in because he's played excellently for Brighton. He's a well-coveted player. I want to see Emi Buendia come in from Norwich because I think he's an excellent talent and has scored a ridiculous amount of goals. He's versatile. He can play on loads of different positions, and I think he'd be really good for Smith Rowe as well because Smith Rowe's enjoyed playing in a wider role, and I think you can interchange those two in different positions as well. I just want to see us make signings that are actually going to have an immediate impact and make a real difference, and I feel like those types of signings can really get the fans on boards. And if they can get it done also and not kind of, flitter away the transfer window and do this on deadline day, get it done at the start, get it done early, get them in, get the pre-season, get them in before the Euros, because the Euros is happening. Some of those players aren't going to be going off to play international tournaments, so get them in June, July. I know that the window isn't open till July, but it doesn't stop teams from signing players. I mean, Werner joined Chelsea at ridiculously early in the season. Yeah, you've seen Leicester move for Samare as well already at this point in the season. You need to get them in now. You need to get them in as soon as possible. As soon as that season finishes, I want to see players starting getting signed by the club because it's just what we need to lift the fan base, and it will prove to us also that the club is serious about this season, which we just haven't really seen for a long time.
We need 3 midfield players, Tom. Three. That's the start. 3 midfield players with goal scoring ability. People used to criticise Aaron Ramsey. You know what I mean? But like he scored more goals in one season than all of our midfielders put together. We used to, mock it really in a way, you know what I mean? But that's what we need. We need to sign players and that. I don't care, if they come from Brighton, Crystal Palace, or whatever, as long as they do the job. Now, that is as simple as it is, And Arsenal can take these sort of players away from these clubs because we're Arsenal Football Club, and that is what we've got to do. And we can't shop at Harrods, we know that, but we can shop a little bit better than Lidl's, and that's what we've got to do.
Yeah, no, it's a perfect analogy, and we need to be in a position where one day we are back at Harrods, and we
exactly.
Is that it's not going to necessarily happen right now, but Arsenal need to put themselves again into that standing where they're a club that players want to come to, because the whole rhetoric of like Arsenal being, or players being fans of Arsenal is a big thing that's kind of put forwards. I mean, you look at the whole Camavinga links that he grew up with Arsenal posters in his room and stuff. The likes of Thierry Henry and the Dennis Bergkamps and the Arsene Wenger golden era, which a lot of kind of the younger players coming through right now lived through, that will only last for so long. And we need to start eventually making our own heritage in the modern era that fans are going to want to support. I mean, I'm growing up in the south of England and I'm seeing Man City kits cropping up all over the place. And I'm not seeing too many kids wearing Arsenal shirts these days. And it might not matter to some people, but it is a problem. It is genuinely an issue that 100%. Arsenal lose that notoriety.
Tom, if I was a young kid now, I don't think I'd support Arsenal. Why would you support Arsenal? There's no real standout players that
get bullied in the playground.
Yeah, this is what I'm saying. When I was a kid growing up, Arsenal we had Liam Brady, we had those sort of guys, Frank Stampton and like John Radford, George Armstrong. Just before that, You know, players that my dad used to go on about, like, you know, and that ingrained in you. You know, Tottenham had Martin Chivers and people like that, and you know, there was always someone to hang your hat on. And all of a sudden now, you know, you know, Saka is probably the one, but he's 19 years of age. It's a little bit different. You know, you look at Manchester City, you got to take your pick. De Bruyne, you know, as I say, I'm not in the playgrounds no more as a kid, but like I imagine all the kids now playing saying De Bruyne, they're saying this. You know, but even with my son's era, he's now 20. Like, you know what I mean? It was Drogba and you know, talking about Chelsea and people like that. You know. It's been a long time since Arsenal have had someone you could turn around and go, "Whoa, yeah." You know, we're going back 16, 17 years now to the Thierry Henry, you know, like, or 20 years, you know, if you think to the Henrys and Vieiras and all that. Like, now, if you was growing up in that era, yeah, like, you know, I mean, I want to be like Patrick Vieira. You know, I was still playing at those times, Tom. Right, and I know you might think this is silly, but they used to put the Vaseline, didn't they, on the old shirt and all that. I was still playing semi-pro then. I'm slapping a bit of the old on my shirt, like the old kit man used to say, "That ain't coming out, judges. Getting it on there," because I wanted to be like at 35, 36, 37, like, you know. Yeah. That's the difference. One of these, I say it now, Tom, and you might think that I'm sick. Back in the day, if Ian Wright was over on the M25, I'd dodge across to go and see him and say hello, or all those Arsenal players, you know what I mean? The Henrys, Vieiras and all that. Like, if I see the Arsenal squad walking past my house now, I draw the curtains. That's how it is now, like, you know what I mean? So that is it, you know, and that's what we've grown up with, and what I'm seeing now. If I was a kid now, I wouldn't be supporting Arsenal.
No, I can't disagree and think about like the kids when obviously used to be a teacher, of course, and you conversations that go on and you hear them, and it's just Arsenal just are not spoken about in any way or shape or form.
Well, the bigger, like, even with Spurs around this area now, like Harry Kane, for instance, is the England captain. So that's a big thing for kids, you know, when you're younger and all that. Like, we haven't got. I used to moan when Tony Adams weren't captain for England. When are we going to have an England player be captain for England? You know what I mean? Like, I ain't never going to. I don't think we'll ever see it. You know what I mean?
Even Rob Holding, and I've defended the guy, but when Rob Holding is Arsenal captain, I look at that and I go, it just doesn't. It's nowhere near kind of the level that Arsenal need to be, and I respect the guy, and I think that he can be. I'm glad that we signed up to a new deal to be a squad player for us going forwards, but he shouldn't be a starting centre back for Arsenal. Really,
well, not a captain.
Especially not a captain, and it's a really. That's the thing that obviously hopefully will change, is that I look at last summer and I see Gabriel and Partey coming. I think, okay, we're moving in the right kind of direction with the players that we're bringing in, and hopefully that carries on this summer. But a year is a long time in football, and the gap between summer windows is a hell of a long time, and a lot has changed in that time. Let's try and finish the show on a positively. Can you come up with any kind of hope, any prospective thoughts that the fans can kind of rest their hat on and go, you know what, I can finish this show on a positive. I'm trying to lengthen this out to give you a long amount of thinking time to come up with something.
I know what the positive is. The positive is Daniel, whether you like, whether he comes in or not, what that will do, and also the Super League will make a couple of things happen. Like, you know, it will either make the Cronkies invest because they've got to, because, you know, otherwise why are they there? And if they don't want to do it, then they sell up. So there's the two positives. Either this board shapes up or it ships out. It's as simple as that now. It's going to come down to that, like. And I think that it will. I think that they can't talk about it no more because there is those offers there. They've sold they've sort of played their hand a little bit with the Super League, and you know, it's messed them up. So they've got two options now, and whatever option it'll be, I think it'll be good for Arsenal for Arsenal fans. You know, they either invest or they ship out, and I think that they'll have to invest. I don't see them shipping out. Whether they're invested enough or not, that's a different thing. But I do think there will be more positives than negatives in that department. But the worrying thing is then is can Arteta gel them together? That we'll have to wait and see.
We will. It's going to be an interesting summer for sure about how Arsenal kind of approach it, the players that are brought in, and then obviously how we start the campaign next season. It's been a real pleasure, Lee, as always.
No worries. That quick 45 minutes that was, Tom.
Flies by when you're having fun.
I'll tell you what, it's been quicker than a lot of first halves at Arsenal, watching Arsenal.
you tell me. Although I have to tell you, watching that West Brom game, I thought the half went so quick, and I thought it was if anything, it was kind of what's the word? A mercy that it went quite quickly. If anything, I felt I was staggered by the time we got to half time. But tell people where they can find you on the socials, Lee. I'm sure they know already. But
yeah, Lee Mark Judge is on Twitter and of course on Instagram as well. And obviously, same old Arsenal AFTV, whatever you want to pick, like yeah.
There you go. Just before we wrap up, we have one more super chat that came in from Davin, who said Arsenal lacks a winning culture. The manager and the board have to be on the same page when it comes to reaching our targets. And fingers crossed, there's that little bit of hope that fills me. If Arteta didn't feel that there was going to be the backing and his plan wasn't going to get put into action, would he really stick around? I don't know. I'm kind of hoping that there might be some weight to that, but we will see. Thank you, chat box, for tuning in. You've been absolutely fantastic with your comments. Of course, our Friday shows, you are the stars of that, and we'll be getting through as many of those as feasibly possible. Join us a little bit later on this evening when I'll be doing another tactical breakdown on Dennis Zakaria, the Switzerland midfielder that we've been linked to as well. So that'll be an intriguing one for you. And then we'll be back tomorrow morning as well at 8 a.m. Lee, I'm getting up at 8 a.m. every day to do shows. It's crazy.
Well, that ain't too bad. It could be worse, couldn't it? You could be getting up to go to school.
Exactly. Some do. Imagine that life. We'll see you again very, very soon. It's been a pleasure to speak to you as always. And as always, up the Arsenal.